And with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to Lisa Hartman, who's going to be talking about bringing corporate learning strategies to academia. Lisa brings over 20 years of experience in adult and online education with a focus on transforming e-learning into a tool for critical thinking and skill application. She has led innovations in healthcare training, oncology nurse navigation, and national certification, and holds a master's in international business. That is impressive, Lisa. And thank you so much for being here and for helping us close out the event today. Lisa, I'm going to go ahead and hide myself from the screen and let you take it away.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. No, I'm really excited to kind of talk to the group today. Really excited to be here and to be offered this opportunity. In large part, I think what I've been doing over the last year and a half is kind of different. I feel like it's different, and so I really just wanted to come here today, kind of share my story, a little bit of what I've been doing, especially with other leaders in the room, and kind of get a sense of. Have a little bit of a dialogue. So this is more of me telling you a story um, per se having a lot of information to or advice to necessarily give you. I think this is really coming and saying, let's maybe have a dialogue about what's happening in this space, and the way that we're able to use our learning and development expertise to kind of transform some other areas that where maybe we haven't lived historically. So, first, I want to talk to you about the goal of where I was. So, I came into Vanderbilt University about a year and a half ago, and I came from corporate. I came from healthcare, so I've been in healthcare, and really to come in. The goal that was handed me, they had started a program per se where they had really been handed down from the university leadership to say, you need to do this. And so they'd been trying to do it with no leadership and without anybody in place to actually create a department. And then they brought me in. And so the idea was to create a for profit professional development arm within the School of Nursing. So to basically not think about delivering something to students, but based on previously outlined strategic plans and goals that they had done before I ever came in was revenue diversification. And so there's a couple of things in the world of academia. Obviously, revenue diversification is a big one, with the idea that, the School of Nursing was relying much too heavily on student enrollment as their only means of revenue, and that's not where we want to be. That's not sustainable today. You don't want to put yourself in that place, and it's also you're relying on those students, so it's unfair in many ways to put all of the revenue pressure on enrollment. So instead, thinking about we have all this expertise that lives. I mean, the faculty are internationally known experts. We have all of this expertise living and working. So it's like it's a room of SMEs. It's all these subject matter experts living and breathing. So how do we take advantage of that and create revenue diversification? So what they suggested was the creation of a professional development opportunity or multiple types of opportunity for really the working nurses. So the people not inside the university, we're looking outside. We're looking at the hospital systems. We're looking at long-term care facilities because we're nurses. So thinking about how do we get the people who are actually doing the jobs out there, who are asking for professional development, who had been leaving the profession due to the lack of professional development and growth opportunity in their mind. How do we take what we have, build a revenue-based arm, and go out and give to this group of people on potentially a global platform? So then really looking at as well as expanding our faculty's recognition, putting them on an increased professional platform where they're going to get a lot more recognition through events, build, face recognition, trying to do that at the same time. And also look at creating partnerships with professional organizations and corporate entities. So when we think about if we have large healthcare corporate entities, could we create partnerships with them that would put anything that we created? Could we basically, have a contract where we're a service provider for that organization? Or could we connect with a professional organization, much like this one, and co-brand, say, training modules or something of that nature, or an event and where that might drive revenue, something of that nature where we come together. This is very unique for academia. Whereas, and I call this kind of the corporate learning because I did all this. In corporate, we do contracts all the time. We're constantly looking at partnerships. We were constantly looking at, we contracted work when we needed it. This is not the case usually in academia. So this was all very, very new. And this idea of revenue diversification, especially for a nonprofit university, was and a private institution, was mind-boggling for some folks. So then, really, as a department of one, my job was to come in. I was to design what this was, to create everything about it, and implement it all as a new office. And all of the deliverables were designed by me. And basically mimic what I had been doing in corporate professional development, but in an academic environment for people out there in the world. So my new corporation was basically the globe and all the nurses in it. So figuring out kind of how to do that was the goal. So some of the initial challenges were really just strategic misalignment, which is not an uncommon challenge. I think so. One of the things I mentioned that they had done a strategic plan, and that was honestly the first time that they had ever done that. So we had a strategic plan, which was a brand new thing. We had brand new leadership and a dean and vice dean coming into the organization and doing some of these changes. We had other brand new things. And I think you all know, as learning professionals, what happens when you have people who have 18,000 brand new things coming at them. It's a lot. And so the assumption was made by leadership that because the faculty and everybody came together and built the strategic plan together, that we were all happily aligned once it was all done and tied with a bow. And that's not necessarily the case. There are folks sitting in there who don't contribute. There are folks who sit in those rooms and potentially don't understand what they still don't understand the point of the strategic plan. They're still back at point number one, but a lot of that isn't clear. And when you have 150 faculty members, it's not possible to necessarily ensure that every single person is completely in alignment with what you've marked forward as where you're going. So there was a little bit of misalignment there, always to be expected with new things. And so really it was pushing a strategy, and that came from the top. It was a top down strategy where it was like, hey, you need to do this. And I think we also know that never really works well, because when you're forced to kind of put something into place without proper planning and alignment time, it usually doesn't work out so well. And that was the situation that they were in, that I walked into, is that they had been struggling with projects for about 2 years because nobody really knew how to build development. Nobody really knew how to build learning, and they were all trying to do it as their second job in their spare time. And nobody really knew, and they didn't really have a strategy for how to get it done. So then there was me coming in to overhaul everything. And some of the other pieces were technology. The university as a whole had purchased technology, but they didn't have learning and development professionals deciding what technology actually needed to be in place. So you end up with sometimes some square peg, round hole. You're using the wrong technology for what you're looking to accomplish. That happens. It's a nonprofit university, so there was a lot of, and private universities. So let me tell you, there's a lot of misalignment with some folks. When people start talking about the word revenue, especially in the world of nursing, people get very uncomfortable. They don't like that. They don't like talking about revenue. And then there were a lot of people who said, but we're a nonprofit. But not understanding that, nonprofits have to make profit too in order to keep the lights on. But people get very, very uncomfortable about that. And there were a lot of people who were upset and honestly a little angry talking about the need to make money. They didn't like that. And so there was misalignment there. But then there's still this real need for revenue diversification and honestly to create a role in professional development. And for some people, they also, the piece that was missing and the discussion that hadn't been had was I came in and I discovered that there were some faculty and folks who felt it was not their role or responsibility to provide professional development to nurses once they were through their program. They were like, we are a university, we train and develop nurses and we send them out into the world. Then it's their employer's responsibility to provide them professional development, and that they weren't in the world of professional development. And that was not something that really leadership had foreseen being an issue, but it was with multiple folks where they did not see this as part of their larger role and responsibility. And then that's a change management discussion. And so there was real strategic misalignment in some of that. Additional challenges were just that I had to educate and re-educate and re-educate and re-educate. And you all have been there and done this, where you're just like, who are you? What are you doing? Why are you doing that again? What's it all about? And so you had to go back through that. I had to introduce everyone to the concept of e-learning. It really was not something that most of these folks even understood what it was. And then really, I had to introduce them to best practices. It was going to be different than developing your academic course. And so they were going to have to learn that. And it was about developing workflows, holding people accountable with timelines, not something that they were used to. Change management, accepting my expertise as an outsider, as somebody coming in and developing a brand new program who was not a grad of the university. So, understanding that I knew what I was talking about in this. And so that takes a long time. You've got to develop some trust with folks. You've got to be able to show them what you're doing. And then they have competing interests. I mean, if you know anything about the world of academia, there's been a couple of conversations really going on. Workload has been a huge issue across the country with a lot of faculty, and workload has been a significant issue. And so for a lot of folks, they're just like, I don't have the bandwidth to add one more thing into what I'm doing. And then another of the competing financial were the financial requirements. We had a lot of folks, and it was not foreseen, but folks were not willing to do this if they were not going to receive a large sum of money in order to do it. They felt that they needed a large stipend in order to create professional development or to serve as a subject matter expert. And so it took, I had to figure out, obviously, when you're starting a new program, I don't have a giant lump of money when I'm trying in order to pay everyone this giant stipend. I was not sitting with this endless budget in order to create revenue diversification. So I had to get creative about how can I appease what they're looking for in financial return, and to make them feel invested in it. So we have developed a profit share model in there, but part of that was also educating and re-educating about what profit share is, because that was a new term for a lot of these folks. And what does that mean? What does that look like? How do I know that you're gonna give me what I'm supposed to get? All of those pieces. And then you have everywhere, you have people who go rogue. As soon as you teach them something, they think that they're like, well, I can do my own training, I can build my own things. And they're out there just doing it without your awareness of it. And they're calling it, so then you're not able to harness it into your larger program. You're not able to actually utilize it and get it out there to the people who need it. And they're just kind of out doing their own thing. And that happens all the time. Instructional design was another challenge. Academic instructional designers build academic courses, and that is extensive work that takes a really long time. And so we had instructional design that already had full-time jobs. And so they were trying to fit this in to wherever they could, which is not ideal when you're trying to create things, especially when you're focused in on building critical thinking into these kinds of things, when you're really looking at implementing and ensuring that folks can can apply the skills and apply the things that you're teaching them, that they're not just didactic PowerPoints. And so that's really hard to do. So I had to really push the envelope in order to get contractors in to do some of this work, which was, again, kind of unique. They're not accustomed to doing contractors much the same way that a lot of corporate entities do. And that has been a game changer to be able to do that and have lots of different folks. And there's so many incredible instructional designers out there. So to get them connected to these projects. And then legal is obviously, on a college campus, there's a lot of legal stuff going on, especially right now. And I when you've never been the priority, or you haven't ever done this type of thing before, and now you're stepping in and like, okay, now I need a lot of legal attention even though I never needed it before, that can be a challenge because it's hard to get to the front of the line. So there can be some challenges in that, to get to the front of the line, to create your contracts, to let them know what you're doing now that you've never been doing before, and all the different kinds of legal oversight and documentation you'll need. So operational successes, I just want to share with you. So obviously we got foundationally created a mission statement, a logo, and really focused in on defining deliverables. So a lot of we're focusing in first on micro learnings. So everything down into what we define as 30 minutes or less for micro learnings, things that nurses, they need to be able to take it over lunch break. They do. They need to be able to take it on when they're walking on a treadmill, whatever it might be. But also putting it into micro credentials, because those things do speak, especially to nurses, if you're able to show competency in areas that patients are going to want to see that you have competency in certain areas, and that, really administration can market that you have competency in certain areas. So those are really important as well. In-person institutes, so think about small conferences, also doing a summer discovery program, the very first summer discovery program for nursing in the United States. For high school kids. So there is a program called Summer Discovery. That's actually their name. And we're delivering the very first nursing program that they've ever done. This is a program for international and national high school juniors and seniors interested in pursuing and developing their careers. And then obviously webinars like everybody else, and expanding from there. But, in that, you have to build a complete intake process that makes sense. You've got to get it internal communication, again, education, re-education, again and again. An internal design process. We had to go through multiple iterations to find what actually worked. Creating a social media presence, having supportive materials. So I designed a toolkit for all faculty that basically walk them through all of the elements of even pulling materials together for e-learning, defining for them what it is, how to do it, how to interact with me and my team, etc. We developed a brand new website. We didn't have a website, so that has been designed from the ground up. And then I was able to hire a program manager just a few months ago. So that was great to really, focus in on a lot of the administrative work. And then, over this year and a half, I can proudly say, partnership wise, we have 2 corporate partners. We have 1 professional organization partner. We are partnering with 1 international subject matter expert on some learning that is coming forward very soon. We have 2 micro credentials that are releasing in May. That's about 20 micro learnings. I will say I apologize for having the X in there, but we have over 100. So that's how many we have. We have over 100 micro learnings in development that will be released in 2025. They are all currently in development. And they're all moving forward very, very well. And I'm so excited that by the end of fiscal 2025, we will have well over 100 in our catalog. We were accredited to provide nursing contact hours. So that is something that we are able to provide on our learning. And so that's another piece of the professional development arm that I've been managing. And like I said, we are the inaugural institute. We're having our very first one that is focused in on quality improvement in delirium care in June 2025, featuring both an international subject matter expert and a Vanderbilt expert. And then we're having the summer discovery students come in July in 2025 as well. And then really my lessons learned, I mean, these are the things, right? That make no assumptions. We know this, and it's so hard not to. And assumptions were made about things throughout, and I'm just as guilty as the next person. And sometimes you just get reminded, stop making those assumptions about that people understand something, that people automatically, just because people teach a course doesn't mean they understand what e-learning is, doesn't mean they understand what you need from them, that they're even aligned with the concept of it. So, again, make no assumptions. Connect. I mean, that's really been the key to my success through everything that I've done, is build and collaborate, just continuous collaboration, and be prepared. Sometimes you just have to meet people where they are, and sometimes you have to say, maybe this isn't for you right now, but think about it, and then I'll come back to you. Always be prepared to pivot. I mean, you need to have a plan A, B, C, and D, especially when you're building something brand new. Be prepared to pivot and redo it. I mean, try it out. If it doesn't work, fix it. And then just get ready to repeat yourself, but make sure that you're consistent. Because when you build something new, you're going to be repeating yourself 1,000 times, but that message better be the same every time, because there will be someone who is listening who will say, that's not what you said last time. And that is such an important piece of that, is making sure that your message is consistent. And so next steps for this program, obvious continuing refining of processes. I just built a policy manual for the contact hours, that's in place. It's expanding alumni outreach. The university has an incredible alumni group with unbelievable professionals around the globe. And so just really expanding our outreach with them, getting involved with them, allowing them to give back to the nursing community, just really utilize their expertise and present them up as well. And then new leadership, because I do have to say, I have been offered a wonderful new opportunity that I could not pass up with an organization. And so I'm currently in the process of pivoting, and developing as much as I can to get this moving forward. And before I set my little 1.5-year-old baby free for somebody else to take and lead into its next era. But that is my story. And so I'm interested in your questions, comments, whatever. And I appreciate you listening.
Wow, that's awesome, Lisa. Thanks for sharing that. Just can you talk a little bit about just the resistance that anybody that you may have that you were met with at all?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of resistance about a lot of I don't understand what this is about. That was a lot of it is that there was a lot of I don't understand what this is about. I don't understand why, what you're going to do with it, because the message that kind of comes from, leadership is, oh, you have a bunch of content already, right? So meet with Lisa, give Lisa your content, and she'll turn it into something else. Well, I don't know what you're going to turn it into. I don't know what you're going to do with it. I don't know. I don't know that I want to let you have it. There's a lot of that too. I mean, and some of it is it's
Yeah,
cultural, right? Like, so
yeah.
some of it comes into individual kind of culture. There is some competition, not, that happens in an academic environment, not unlike, obviously, a corporate environment. My decision has been to utilize that. So what I try to do is figure out where competition exists. And then if I'm able to get somebody's in and get them to develop something with me and get that out there where people can see it, well, then I know those people who are competitive with that person are going to be like, well, what about me? And so
Wait,
I try
sorry,
to.
sorry. Can you clarify that? I'm trying to understand. Is it like because in the corporate environment, like people kind of competing with each other to get ahead? Is it
Mhm.
that same type of thing? So within your organization or your teams, you're seeing that people are um,
It
functioning that
is a
same
little
way?
bit. It is a little
Yeah.
bit, although nobody's really competing to get ahead in an academic environment, really. I don't know
Right.
where, I think it's, a lot of it is there's so many awards and recognitions
Wow.
and things that folks get in academia, and they do compete for grants and they compete for, you know, but these folks are highly awarded on a regular basis from organizations across the globe. And so, having your name in the spotlight, I think is so that's where folks compete, and they all want the same thing. And there is that there's just a smidge of jealousy when so and so is mentioned a lot or gets a lot of accolades, and then what about me? And if I can use that, I can use that, right? Like that's healthy. I can create a more healthy competition based on that to say, so that so you find the early adopters just like you do in anything else. And you find the people who are willing to try something new and are a little bit more naturally trusting, and you can work with them easier. And then once you have something that other people can see, then they're like, "Oh, well, I don't want to be left out of that."
Yeah.
And that's so it's really a matter of creating an environment where people don't want to be left out, like where people are. And so to build a culture like that takes a lot longer.
Mhm.
Obviously, to know a lot of the resistance is just a lot of it is just fear of so much happening and so much changing.
Right.
And couple of things in the nursing community, because I always feel I can say this because I'm a nurse too. So there's a couple of things about nurses in general. One is nurses are extremely concrete thinkers. I'm a rarity because nursing was my second career, but most nurses are not abstract thinkers. So a lot of what we're doing in L&D is creating and in strategy is being very abstract and kind of thinking about, oh, what could be, what could they are very concrete. And so you have to take everything that you're building abstractly and you have to learn to communicate it in an extraordinarily concrete way. The other thing is nurses are generally they're masters of their own domain. So if you think about the field of nursing, they're in control of their patients and they're in control of their little microcosm that they can have with their patients. And they are highly protective of that space. And that never changes.
Mm.
And so that culturally kind of fits into they don't like the change. They don't like chaos coming into their little world because they're creating that, and they're keeping their patients safe. They're keeping all of their stuff safe in here. And they really don't like it when there's a bunch of change coming in and trying to impede that. So they bristle. They bristle a little bit when there's all of that happening. So I think it's really that they're trying to keep everything that in their world. And if you understand that, it makes perfect sense because they're keeping people alive in their clinical space. And so that level of protection and mastery of my space, and you stay out of my space, very much translates, because most of the folks there, they still work clinically as well. I mean, so
Right.
they're still out there doing patient care and they're teaching. So that cultural kind of attitude just finds its way right into the academia as well.
Toddy has a relevant comment here. Toddy says it aligns with the theory of innovation. Early adopters drive innovation, but the next
Mhm.
in line have to see the social proof before making
100%.
changes. Yeah, yeah.
100%. And,
Rob,
and it even teach people why you need to be innovative, because it's not something that, again, if you're there's not a great understanding sometimes with everyone of why do we need to do something different? Why do we need to why do we need to be innovative? And what was wrong with what we were doing? And some people are very comfortable in status quo.
right? Who tended to support your efforts? Was there anybody that like
Oh yeah.
did you started championing quickly,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, so I will say first and foremost, I have an incredible dean. So I have to say, if anybody wants to apply for my job was great. The dean is a remarkable, and she was an incredible champion from the beginning and has been incredibly supportive, and just continues to be as is the assistant dean. And really, she's a mover and a shaker. She is somebody who was an innovator in the nursing field herself. So she is somebody who wants to drive innovation. I would say as well, absolutely, there are some faculty who have been tremendous and tremendous to work with. And so, you just kind of find who they are. And often they're in those fields where they're innovating something different again, to that point where they're maybe building something for students and, kind of doing it in their own time on their, they have to build it, and then they can get grant money to try to help support it. But a lot of times they're innovating, they're doing things a little bit differently themselves. And when you find those people, then you make that connection. And a lot of you got to make that connection and spend some time kind of just even learning their world, talking to them, gaining a little bit of trust before people are kind of willing to engage with you on their content. I have this stuff. Yeah, I'd love to see you, maybe see what you do with it. And then, obviously I don't just take it and run with it and they never see it again. They're very much a part of all of that, but it's getting them to recognize that, they're going to have the final say. They're going to be able to, edit and understand, that they're very much a part of the creation. But, that's not what people understand at first. And so you just kind of have to start with the relationship. And that's really, really key with these kinds of individuals, is just being able to build that relationship where then they trust you with their content is their baby. And so they don't hand it over easily.
Is there anything in particular, like if somebody were to be going through this same type of process? I mean, have you found that there were indicators that could help you find those champions more quickly now than like in the past?
Yeah, I think the one of the good things to do is set up opportunities
Mm,
for people to come and learn. So if there's like and those people who come, right, are
yeah.
usually the ones who are interested, because and don't be alarmed if there's only 2 people. That's
Mhm.
okay. And so that's one of the things that I did is, okay, we might have an informational session on this where you can come and learn a little bit more. And if only 2 people show up, that's fine. You've got 2 people who are interested. And you can use those 2 people because those are the ones who are willing to take the chance because they took
Mhm.
the chance and they came to your little dog and pony show. And so, they're because they were willing to come to that, then, engage them, get them and keep them. And that's how you can do that. Whether it's in person or whether it's virtual doesn't really matter, but you can have those kinds of things where they can ask a bunch of questions, you can show them some things, like you can show them examples of things and just really kind of create an environment where they know exactly what the next steps are and what you're going to do and what you're going to look for. And again, you don't have to have everybody there. Make it something that people can choose to come to. And when you do that, the people who showed up took time out of their day to show up. So that's your answer about them.
Right, right. That's great. Thank you, Lisa. I
Yeah.
want to add this comment from Carol Ann here. Carol Ann says, making meaningful connections is at the heart of effective content creation and change management. When people feel seen, heard, and valued, they become co creators, not just passive recipients. Building relationships invites collaboration, fosters trust, and ensures that the change is something people do with you, not something that's done to them. That's a
Wise
great point,
words.
Carolyn. Thank you. Thank you.
Wise words. I mean,
Yeah.
I truly believe there's nothing. I mean, in all things, relationship management is probably one of the most important things. Like we have to be able to make connections with other people, and and we have to be able to let them tell their story and we tell our story and we figure out where our common ground is. I mean, and that's kind of key to everything, in not only learning and development, but just life.
Wow. Yeah. So many great little like wise tidbits that we're like hearing from you, Lisa, and from the chat audience. Toddy mentions doing road shows to help bring in the curious people. That's something I guess that aligns well with that. Let's see. And yeah, this is great stuff, Lisa. Anything in particular that kept you up at night?
Honestly, the biggest challenge for me has been the legal challenge, if I'm
Mm,
gonna be frank. I mean, because the rest of it is easy to, not easy, but it's change management. And whereas the legal challenge is just something that is structural, it's a structural challenge in the way things are set up and how you have to communicate and elevate, and then you're just kind of reliant on that lawyer out there getting you what you need. For me, that's been the biggest challenge, because the turnaround time is very, very slow in an academic environment, and I'm like, oh, we need to push the pedal to the metal, because I'm the one communicating back and forth with partners. And so in that respect, I have been very clear to them, like, I don't want my reputation damaged, because it looks like I'm taking 3 months to put together a contract. You know what I
Right.
you know what I mean? So that on some of these things, the expectation needs to change in the turnaround time, because you're working with external partners who will expect, and if you promise something legal, if you tell me I'm going to have something next week, then you need to deliver it next week.
Yeah.
And if you tell the client you're going to deliver something next week, you need to have it next week, because then I'm the one who has to go say, I don't have it. It's that kind of thing, and that's a structural um, kind of issue that's a little bit more challenging, because obviously that's outside of our school. It's outside of our school, and so it's outside of purview, and that's where having a supportive dean is incredibly important, because she's somebody who can escalate that, and somebody who can discuss that with obviously university leaders, to kind of say, here's where the problems exist, and she does escalate those kinds of things. And so but some of that is just structurally, there's probably some changes that need to happen in the way things are vetted through that system in order to make it more efficient. But if you can highlight those things and get them to people who are supportive, then you can make change on a larger scale too. So, but that's the thing, because legal always keeps you up at night. That's like
Yeah.
the
Yeah. How
the
about
rest
Toddy's
of it we
asking,
figure out.
right. Toddy's asking about pushback from compliance.
Mm, no, there really hasn't been. There really hasn't been pushback.
Hmm.
Um, and nothing of that nature. So I I would say um no. I mean, it's been a pretty easy going in regards to just kind of moving things. I think some of it, as well as just, and we have this in learning and development across the board, is that sometimes folks have just maybe unreasonable timelines.
Mm.
So in that same way that a lot of times in learning and development, we're constantly having to teach or reteach folks w- that it does take some time to create. If we're truly going to create learning and not just create something that is um, didactic in nature, if we're truly going to have somebody engage in critical thinking, it takes time to develop those things. It takes time to develop new partnerships and relationships, that I can't just wave a magic wand and it's all there and done. So, it I think that it was more about maybe some unrealistic timelines and things like that, but where then it's just a matter of having to educate folks to this world, and
Yeah.
to why things take what the time they take, to how long do they take, and how long should they take, what's acceptable, what's not, all of those pieces.
What do you think was the most common sort of conflict that you had to resolve?
The financial piece,
Mm.
um, because so many folks they just really are used to being paid up front
Hmm.
for everything they do, and this is they feel no different. And so um and I've had folks decide and back out at the last minute, because they're like, okay, well, I'm just not getting this. They might want $10,000 to serve as a subject matter expert on a microlearning, and I'm like, I just don't, I can't give you that. I cannot give you
Wow.
that.
Wow.
And so I've had some people kind of last minute kind of say, you know what, no, I'm not going to do this, because I'm just not going to. I don't know what I'm getting out of it. And so I think that's some of that's the piece that honestly the dean has been the most, surprised by, because she is very much like, "It's service, it's give back," and she's the type of person who would be like, "Oh, well, I'm helping other nurses out there, I'll give back," but, and so for some faculty, it's been, "Oh, you're gonna make money on it, but you're not gonna give me any money." Um, so there's a little bit of that, like uh, that they're much more interested in, because the concern is, right, oh, the money's going to go back to the school, but that doesn't guarantee it comes into my department, and I'm the one who did this.
Ooh,
So it's fine, so that clash has been the most common clash. And that just takes a lot, again, education, re-education of talking through, understanding what their concerns are, just listening. It takes a lot of listening. And for sometimes it's like, I don't think, maybe we just don't do this right now. Why don't you wait and see how it works for some other people, and then we'll come back to you. And usually folks are cool with that. Like they're like, okay, yeah, I'd like to see how this plays out a little bit more.
okay. So you're moving into another role now.
I am.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'm gonna be, the Senior Director of Education and Meetings for APIC, which is the Association for Professionals in Infection Control and Epidemiology.
Hmm.
So I'm very excited about this opportunity to kind of move back in, especially, I mean, the biggest change for me is getting back into people leadership, where I will have a larger team of people. It's something that I love to do. And so I've been really out of the kind of people leadership space for a couple of years, and I'm very excited to get back into it, because it's one of those things that I find very rewarding, and and I think I'm very good at. So I'm excited to have an opportunity to kind of bring that skill set back into the work that I do. And then, just really, again, I think I love working in the professional organization space as well. I have done that previously. I thoroughly enjoy it. I enjoy connecting with all the people who are members and things like that. So
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
Yeah. Yeah. I know the feeling.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's awesome, Lisa. Wow, incredible. Let's see. Any other questions? Let me check the QA here. Yeah, I don't see anything in there. Gosh, Lisa, thank you so much for sharing this. This is
Well,
really some great stuff. Yeah, I'm seeing it. Looks like we don't have any other questions. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and just wrap up the session. Lisa, thanks again for doing this. And everybody, just a reminder, we've got a couple more sessions left today to wrap up the event. We've got Margie, who I think is in the audience now, who's going to be talking about, what was Margie talking about? I don't know, something incredible, since she is the brain lady, and is doing so much work with AI. And then Inas Aref is wrapping up the event today with an incredible session. So that one will be at 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close everything out. Hope to see everybody in the next one. Lisa, thanks again for taking
thank
the
you,
time out to
everyone.
share with us today. Appreciate that. All right. And bye, everybody.